How do engineers and scientists get from point A to secret bases that allegedly reverse engineer UFO and other alien technology? And was there a secret battle raged deep underground at one of these bases? This week, the Jackalopes will explore JANET Airlines and Dulce Base.
This week's episode of Jackalopes Explore is brought to you by Cloud Peak Center Lanes and Games, located at 1520 Coffeen Avenue in Sheridan. Stop in today to check out their amazing new arcade and prize counter, offering games and prizes for all ages and skill levels. From their full-service lounge to bowling alley and arcade, there is something for everyone. Cloud Peak Center Lanes and Games. Stop in today.
I'm Floyd Whiting.
I'm Aaron Linden.
I'm Steve Sisson.
And I'm Emmy Whiting.
And we are your Jackalopes. JANET and JANET Airlines are the unofficial names of a highly classified fleet of passenger aircraft operated for the United States Department of the Air Force as an employee shuttle to transport military, Department of Defense civilians, and contract employees to Special Access Program facilities. The airline mainly serves the Nevada Test and Training Range, most notably known as Area 51.
Yes.
From a private terminal at Las Vegas's Harry Reid International Airport. Now, the airline's aircraft, if you were to actually look this up and take a good gander at it, they're generally unmarked, except for one definitive red line, and I believe they call it a cheat line, that goes down the side of the fuselage.
And I actually have a photo for Grant.
Now, JANET Airlines, for me, I mean, it's kind of a given. I think one reason why a lot of people kind of want to watch this airline and pay attention to what's going on is it will fly out of radar. This airline goes where no other plane goes.
Before we get too far into it, what does JANET stand for again?
Yeah, it's an acronym, right?
Just another non-existent terminal, because they have their own terminal, or Joint Air Network for Employee Transportation.
I heard the first one.
Yeah, I like the first one.
The first one is the best one.
When I was looking at videos and everything, I heard the first acronym, and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool.
For me, it's a given. It's how am I going to get people out to my Air Force base that supposedly doesn't exist? Well, I need an airline. And whereas someone made the decision to use a private airline as opposed to military aircraft, probably to try and conceal it a little bit better than just throwing everybody on a C-130, Hercules and flying them out there. But over the years, I think it's become pretty apparent that this non-existent airline exists.
Oh, yeah.
And
Which is funny, though, because the government has never claimed that it exists.
And that's one of the things. It's kind of like Area 51.
Right.
I mean, people are standing outside at the mailbox going, this exists, and the government's like, I don't know what it's talking about.
Where?
I don't know what it's talking about.
I haven't seen it.
But see, generally, that's been the government's stance on all of this, on everything having to do with UFOs, secret bases, and things like that. And I've often wondered if there's a reason behind this, okay, where someone in a desk knows, well, yeah, but I can't say it out loud, because the minute I say it out loud, not only do I have to acknowledge it to citizens of the United States, but the world.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's what I'm concerned about. We all know it's there, okay? But I'm not going to say it's there as a government official, because then the UN's going to go, really? Well, what you doing there? See? But if I look at them and continue to say, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Plausible deniability.
Even if you throw pictures out in front of me, you made those. Fake news. Don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Deny. And that's going to get even more apparent as we go forward. They're just going to deny everything. Even as soon as, gosh, I think it was this year, actually, when right after Grush went before Congress and said there's a lot of evidence that we're reverse engineering UFOs and they're keeping it from you guys, the Air Force came forward and said, we have no idea what he's talking about.
Right.
There's no such thing as aliens. They don't exist. Everybody go look at this fuzzy cat video instead.
Okay, you've convinced me.
Yeah, see. Fuzzy cat, put on a kitten website,
Right.
and people are gone. So for me, JANET Airlines is kind of a given. I can't fly you out there in a military C-130 because now, and I can attest to this because I have been a passenger on these planes multiple times. Wyoming has its own Air Force. And that's one reason why we're activated a lot, because the federal government doesn't have to supply that. We can fly our troops wherever we need them to be. And but the minute a C-130 or a military aircraft lands, everybody's looking.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to see who's on it, what's going on, what's happening over there. So I could see the reasoning behind we're going to use just a very low profile civilian aircraft. We'll get these engineers on there and we'll fly them out here.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, for me, there's no real conspiracy theory behind anything except where they're going.
Yeah. It probably makes sense if you're just transporting people doing their jobs and not troops to use something like a 737 instead of a military aircraft to do that.
Right. And even if I haven't read you into the program, let's say I'm just trying to recruit you. I'm just trying to get you to come out and check it out. The minute I load you up on a C-130 or even a 140 or a Chinook chopper, you're like, oh, I'm working for the military.
Right?
Like that. Especially if it's a black helicopter.
Right?
No markings.
Yeah, exactly. And then you might start to second guess everything.
Mm-hmm.
Civilians approaching military equipment, it's an intimidation factor. And it's meant to be that way. Civilians approaching some obscure looking airline, well, where are we going? What are we doing?
It's just
You're
a charter
more focused
flight
on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of psychology behind the use of this as much as it is anything else. My big thing is, how does someone become a pilot?
Oh, I can tell you.
Of this? Aaron, you know a lot about JANET.
Freaking love JANET.
What do we got?
Yes, I mean, it's there, right? Government says it's not there, but it's there.
Yeah, there's pictures of multiple aircraft.
Right. And I'll later get into some of that, but it's totally there, but they're like, no, it's not there. Which is interesting. So just another non-existent terminal. It actually has its own separate terminal. You can't go there. You will get arrested for trespassing. Like, it's off limits. But so it's a top secret government airline that does not exist. And in the mornings and evenings, and I think maybe this is why I like JANET so much, is I've seen JANET.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're at the airport and you're like, oh shit, that's a JANET flight. Who's on there?
How do you know?
It's a white plane with a red line down it.
It's just white, the red cheat line, no tail markings, no distinguishing,
no like logo,
no company name,
Got it.
Yeah, it's not like it's like JANET. You know?
There's
an alien on the tail.
thumbs up.
Now that would be freaking awesome. I would love that. I would like to repaint.
You
those.
know, if it was going into the Colorado airport, they
I was gonna
definitely
say,
would.
It would arrive to cheers.
Yeah.
And Dallas
Yes.
Airport, when the vets come in, they've got the fire hoses blasting a gate that the planes go through. That would be JANET arriving at DIA. Like a welcome home.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
They should get the people that were in charge of doing all the decorating in DIA to do some new livery for these planes.
Yeah. Or
They
just like make up
Yeah.
their
Just
own
have-
JANET.
Just like Blucifer on the tail.
Yeah, each one could have a different type of character on it.
kinda
First
like-
class,
I
you get
love
free
it.
probes. First class, free probing.
well,
Well, I know where Floyd's going.
It's worth the extra money. So morning and evening generally is when most of the flights occur because people are going to
It's
work
like
and coming home.
Yeah, it's commuters. Yeah.
I mean, they're commuter flights.
And I would imagine like the work shift at one of these bases probably isn't exactly, orthodox. I'm sure it's probably 12 on, maybe 4 off or 8 off or whatever. Or if I was running it, I'd fly you out there for a week on, week off. That's how I do it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
They're constantly flying.
So they're always coming and going.
Always coming and going. But morning and evening. So if you're ever at Harry Reid, just look. You'll see them. The Air Force operated it, and the mission is to fly government workers, military, and contractors out to secret installations and bases. So they fly in and out of Area 51 several times a day. Like, the government's like, nah, we're not doing that. I'm like, yar.
As it's coming in for a landing.
Right.
Yeah. I don't see anything. Do you see anything? I don't see anything.
What?
So they're Boeing 737s, which is actually interesting because when it started in 1972, so they were busing everybody out there, and it was just taking for frickin' ever.
Yeah.
So they're like, we got to do something. And we'll kind of get into who was operating this thing at the time. But so 72, they commissioned these aircraft from China. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
yeah,
you're taking something from, a purported enemy or whatever you want to call them, and you're going to take it to our top military sites. That seems like a bad choice. Like,
well, I'm sure they were scrubbed.
Well, but don't we have 737s that we could have done?
There's a lot of them out there, yeah.
Isn't Boeing a United States based?
Right.
Yeah.
But they probably got these ones cheaper.
Yes. So I found this interesting, though. As of 2023, the U.S. Air Force was actually looking for a new civilian contractor to operate up to 190 flights a week.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wow.
A week. I'm like, wow. It was EG&G that was operating the airline, which for people that don't know who EG&G were, they created the atomic bomb.
Yeah. Private company, right?
Interesting, yeah. And then they're flying in and out of Area 51. So JANET has its own terminal, like we talked about. What's interesting about that is the hangar that it's at, and I've got a picture for Grant on that, is the AECOM hangar. AECOM is a company that has a very, generic website. And they're like, well, we do engineering and want to make a better world for people to the tune of $18 billion with a B a year in revenue.
Wow.
Can you scream government contract more than that?
Yeah. Yeah, because sitting here right now, what do you have in your home that you purchased from AG&G? Nothing.
Right.
But it could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things.
Could be a lot of things.
We will never know. So they fly into Station 3 in the middle of the desert, which doesn't exist, by the way. But which is Area 51. They also fly into other places like Palmdale, California. Anybody know what's in Palmdale, California? Skunk Works. So China Lake in California, Edwards Air Force Base, Groom Lake, Nevada, Area 51, and Las Vegas, as well as the Tonopah Test Range in Nevada. So the government will not acknowledge that this airline even exists. But interestingly, the planes use transponders, right, per FAA regulations. But as they approach Area 51, like you talked about, they click off.
They vanish. Yep.
Really? You take your Cessna up and kick off your transponder. See what happens. You're going to get fined. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to all kinds of stuff. Any other plane that flies within that vicinity gets jet fighters, like immediately.
And gets escorted out, yeah.
Or turned into dust, probably. Well, I mean, if you're like, no, I'm just going to do circles here. Nah, not going to happen.
I think people need to realize that there's probably a lot more going on at Area 51 than just alien stuff, okay? I'm sure there's a whole UFO program down at S2 where Bob Lazar said, hey, it's not actually at Area 51.
Right.
It's a little, I think, south, he said, and it's actually built into the side of a mountain.
We'll get into that, too.
So, but at Area 51, this is also where we developed a lot of technologies that we use for stealth
SR-22
aircraft.
Blackbird.
Our spy planes.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of engineering going on out there. Top secret, Q clearance type secret stuff. and weapons. Because let's face it, the United States of America still has its weapons of mass destruction, and those aren't exactly just technology that does nothing. Those have got to be maintained. I interviewed a guy who, during the Cold War, that was his job, maintaining these weapons. He shared with me what he could. It's very 9 to 5. You get a test this screw, test that nut,
right?
Make sure it'll fly if we need it to fly. But that kind of stuff does still have to happen. So,
top off the rocket fuel.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying, we haven't stopped in the development of that, even though the government wants to say that we
they're not making that kind of stuff downtown LA.
No, right. Exactly. Exactly.
So 20 minutes from Area 51, they blink out. All the pilots and flight attendants, because they have flight attendants, must be able to obtain and retain top secret clearance.
Yeah.
Because, it's just Floyd and I on the plane going, did you work on the UFO? Yeah. Me too. And the flight attendant's like, here's your Coke or what.
Yeah.
So they can't talk about
stuff like that.
They
would have Coke on there and not Pepsi.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
That's definitely, absolutely.
I mean, come on. This is a government thing.
Yeah. It's probably RC or something like that.
You get RC cola.
It's generic like the plane itself. It just says cola on it.
That's when the Brits come to visit. Get them some RC.
They'll be fine. Don't worry about
Fallout shit right there.
So this is where I get really geeked out on this, is because I really like JANET Airlines, because I'm always like, who are the pilots?
Yeah.
So who's flying out there? What are they doing? It's just super exciting. So there is a website called ADSB, right? ADSB Exchange. And you can go on there and track live flights. So in the upper right-hand corner, you click the U, and it filters out all other flights, and it's only military flights that are transponding. So many of them, no call sign or whatever. Where I get really freaky.
And it's all public knowledge.
It's all public.
Yeah.
Is if you zoom in to the California, Nevada region, voila, you will start seeing planes. I literally, just not even an hour ago, took a screenshot of a JANET flight. Here's where it's even crazier. If you zoom into the Las Vegas region, you'll actually see the Nevada National Security Site, as well as the Nevada Testing and Training Range, the NTTR, just north of Vegas. If you zoom in even further to that location, you'll see Area 3 that I mentioned before, which is where the Homey Airport, they call it, is. Just north of that, Area 51. And it's on the map. And they're like, no, not that. It's on the map. I saw it. So go on ADSB, go to that region, but then go to another YouTube channel. I'll give this guy a shout out, called Happy Landings. And this guy has a live stream feed of flights in and out of Harry Reid Airport. So when these things come out of Area 51 and they kick on their transponder, JANET 99, right? You watch that flight, and as it's getting closer to Harry Reid, kick over to Happy Landings, and you can actually watch the flight come in. And it sounds like I have no life. I know. I'm actually a really busy person. This is like midnight stuff, where you're just like, I wonder if there's a JANET. Oh my God, there's a JANET flight,
Model trains is also very popular.
Yeah, well, there are people that actually go to the airports and actually video.
Yeah.
So, you're not that far along.
No, right. So. That's too far.
Yeah.
I do like watching those trains.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, I'll start checking out the JANET. But the craziest part about this is as you're going through and looking at, there's drones up there. There's all kinds of stuff going on all the time that you don't really know about. But I've seen these things because you can actually click on them and it'll show you their flight path and where they're going. They're going everywhere.
Yeah.
They're going DC. They're going Virginia. They're going into Oregon and the upper West Coast. What is that?
Well,
who are they bringing in?
I think we've got probably people, material, and bases everywhere. Honestly, if you were the federal government, the minute Area 51 started to kind of leak out, and then all of a sudden, it's part of the American zeitgeist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everywhere. So now I can't do a majority of the things that I used to do at this site. So I've got to find somewhere else. And
they have an Area 52 somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, or 1.5.
Yeah, I think Area 51 is the decoy.
Yes.
I mean,
that's
Department 56. No, wait.
Well, that's
those
the
are like
thing.
those
Now
little
it
houses.
has to be the decoy because too many people know about it.
Yeah, and then you had that whole Storm Area 51 movement. Nothing came of that. I was really hoping to see some pepper flow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
Maybe like one of those...
they can't get all 100,000 of us.
That's right.
Watch them, because that's the thing. It's not just machine guns and things like that they're going to be trying to use against people storming.
They're going to use
type
their
of area.
alien ray guns that they reverse engineer.
Well, and you wouldn't even see it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In all reality, when we watch movies and you fire a laser at me, we get to see the pew pew.
Right.
There is
Joe.
no pew pew. It's unless there's fog, you cannot see a laser. And I don't think they'd go that far. I think they have non-lethal technology. I just turn the speakers up. Baby.
Right.
And I'm going to drive all of you away, and you won't even know why you're sick, puking, don't want to be there, can't get your eyes to focus. You can't seem to focus your head. It's because I know the frequencies that you run on, and I'm going to turn the speakers up. And you're just going to go home.
Havana syndrome.
Maybe. That's what, honestly, I think would have happened if people would have started going. There wouldn't have been that would have been horrible for the U.S. They wouldn't have done that.
No.
The whole thing reminded me of this back and forth Facebook group thing that happened way back in the day. And it was like between Minnesota and Wisconsin. You might have seen it. Where it was like... It was a Minnesota group where it was like, go to Wisconsin and steal all their cheese. And then Wisconsin made a group that was like, go to Minnesota and steal all their lakes. And the Area 51 thing, storming of Area 51, just reminded me of like this weird, funny Facebook group.
It was never intended to be a serious thing.
Yeah.
But then
there were a lot of people that took it seriously.
See,
that's the thing.
problem.
That's why Area 51 and the government had to be like, don't come here.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we will kill you.
Because it really took fire. I mean, it's fun to sit here and be like, well, yeah, it's funny memes and I'll share and, join the group. But then all of a sudden you start seeing these people
who are like serious.
And you're like, buddy.
Gearing up.
That's a bad choice.
You're not going to want to head there. I mean, because whether it be aliens or whatever, it is still a government secret site where they're developing weapons for the defense of this country. You have no business being there. I'm sorry, but we don't. And I know a lot of viewers feel like I'm some sort of plant or something. But the fact of the matter is, I believe in keeping this country's secrets. If nothing that's going to harm us, but if I have a weapon, then I don't want the enemy to hang on to.
Well, and if it doesn't pertain to society as a whole, like, who
just
cares?
leave it be, man. Yeah.
If you were one of our adversaries, wouldn't you park a spy satellite geosync to Area 51?
Well, I absolutely would. And that's another thing where it's like you have to look at UFO conventions. You've got to look at any information that's coming out, any photos of UFOs. It all has to be fed through the government somehow. What if that's one of my planes that I've been developing, but we're not quite there yet, so we're just doing some test flights. But it looks like a triangle, or it's a drone. It's an unmanned battle vehicle for the next generation of aerial warfare. Well, now all of a sudden, so-and-so got a photo of it. The Chinese, the Russians, they look at that. They don't see UFO at the convention. They look at it and they're like, top secret government weapon right there. And now they've got information that they can use against us in some way, or maybe even start to develop their own. So we have to be cautious about this stuff. I believe in getting to the truth about aliens all the way. But I do not believe in sharing U.S. government secrets while we do it.
Right.
that would protect this nation.
You know, and this made me think of a conversation we had for Janet. Well, it wasn't Janet, but chemtrails or whatever. And you would say it would take so many people and nobody's talking about it. Well, they're flying 190 flights a week and nobody's talking about it. Like, that's a lot of people.
I know, but at the same time, you've got to look at those pilots who fly Janet, okay? They fly that many flights a week. That tells me there's not many of them. There's not many of those pilots that are qualified to do this job.
Well, when they were hiring for the pilot, one, be able to obtain and retain top secret clearance. Also, preferably with jet fighter experience.
Yeah.
Well, wow. Okay.
Well, a lot of our, fighters,
yeah,
they climb out of the jet and then into civilian life somehow. You've got all this fantastic, God, how much money do we spend training these fighter pilots? The best in the world, literally the best in human existence. Now, what am I going to do after I get out of the military?
Yeah.
Janet.
And if you've got
jet
fighter experience, you probably already have certain military connections that would be
and knowledge and because the civilian air control is going to lose you. Okay, boom, you turn off your transponder. Now no one can see you. Okay, all right. Well, we train our pilots to fly blind. Even in Star Valley, they don't do it anymore. But when I was a little kid, you constantly heard sonic booms in Star Valley, Wyoming. And it was constant. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if that was one of the reasons, that area was one of the reasons why the federal government finally said, okay, you can't do it over civilian locations anymore. It was all the time. And the reason being, Hill Air Force Base is in Utah. The way that the valley is shaped, a fighter could drop down into the Rockies and disappear from radar. They're trained, drop low to the deck, hit it, and fly through that valley, fly blind. It was a training exercise, and it happened all the time. That's why we constantly heard sonic booms. And then all of a sudden, you just don't hear them anymore.
No. So Top Gun 3, Maverick flies Janet.
Well, and you never know.
Yeah, he retires out, and he's like, what am I going to do?
Those are the people I want, especially the individuals, let's say like a test pilot, because I already know, about technology that we don't have. So you know how to keep your mouth shut, and you've already passed all your clearances.
Right.
Flight ready. You've got tens of thousands of hours of flight time. Shit, man, let me pay you a bunch of money. Did it happen to list how much these individuals are paid?
No, I couldn't find that.
I'll bet they're paid very well.
I bet.
For a couple reasons, too.
You're not getting that guy that's like
it's
fresh
like
out of school.
$13 an hour.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you got to look at the multiple reasons. Number one, you're qualified. Number two, top secret clearance is hard to get and harder to keep.
Right.
Number three, no one in the world can offer you money to spill your guts. Because I know you're paid well.
Right.
You have no needs that need to be met. And if you want the truth as a U.S. taxpayer, do that. I know you've got it in the budget because you're taking it out of mine. So if you're going to use it to help keep those people's mouth shut. They're doing a patriotic service. Pay them a bunch of money to sit there and fly an airplane.
I will tell you what I want more than anything is, you get on your like Delta flight or whatever, and they're like, here's your like snack and a drink. And they give you the little napkin that says like Delta friendly, whatever. I want a Janet one. It's just a white napkin with a red stripe through it and just says Janet.
Well, I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
Here's the thing. It's funny to think about it, but think about what those, I don't know if they call them stewards anymore. Do they still call them stewards? Flight attendants. Imagine the combat skills those flight attendants have. I'll bet
they'd rip your head off.
Oh man, I'll bet they're all armed. I'll bet they all are amazing at close quarters combat. That way, if anyone started flipping out, just real quick, ninja in the back, man.
Right.
Done and done. I don't think anyone on those planes is a quote unquote regular person.
Well, see, that's the thing is, so you watch them and you look at like Google Earth images from different time frames, and there's like no cars there, and then there's like hundreds of cars there, and people that are like kind of hanging out with their telephoto lenses and stuff, taking pictures, and they're just dressed like us, right? I mean, they're just like normal people. Well, not one of them's normal.
No.
One of them is like top chemist in the world, probably, or whatever. And what kind of conversations are going on this flight? Like, that's the part that boggles my mind.
Everyone's got their headphones in. Nobody wants to talk to each other.
Anybody.
Like every other
They're
flight,
just
like every other
scrolling
flight.
Facebook. Yeah.
If I got to watch Castaway one more goddamn time, put it on again then.
That is such a horrible flight movie.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be?
I would no.
Yeah.
I'd have words with someone if that movie was on a flight I was on.
Yeah.
You know,
That's not a good airline in-flight movie.
No, because I love that movie, but I do not want to watch it while I'm actively on a plane.
on the plane. I don't think they'll show that.
Probably not.
But maybe that's why Tom Hanks does all those flight crash movies, so they don't show them on airlines. I think about like the interviews with Bob Lazar, because he's kind of the first one that really came forward and spoke about this thing publicly. Because people started asking him, how'd they get you out there? And he said, well, I just get a phone call. I go to the airport and I get on a plane. That easy. He's like, could come at any hour of the night that this happens to happen, which is why his former wife thought he's having an affair.
Right.
Because he answers his phone. He's super secret about it. And then he disappears for like 12, 13 hours. And he's working for the government,
in a place that doesn't exist, taking an airline that doesn't exist. That's a bad alibi.
And he cannot tell me anything about what he's doing. And the only reason I bring that up is just, I didn't go back and watch the interviews that he gave about Janet, but I think he does mention it. But they're so compartmentalized, which is one of the biggest issues that, from what we've been told, that this program has, because we are literally not allowed to sit on the airline and go, what are you working on?
Well, that's the thing, because they need it to be secretive. They can't have one person having all the information.
Yeah.
Well, and
that would be so dangerous.
Absolutely.
What I'm wondering, though, is you watch all these people show up and they get on and they fly away. Are there just like engineer flights? So if we are talking, we're just talking about the same thing because we're working on the same project.
I don't know.
Or do they mix all these people together? Because if that's the case, man,
you just sit there silent.
There's a lot of secrets floating around.
Bring a book.
Right.
Put your nose in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that flight attendant is
Yeah,
probably paying attention to what you're saying.
That's kind of my thought too. Is like they're
plants.
Supervisor.
They may be, where they're like, yeah, I'm offering you a Coke and then putting my finger to your lips. Don't you say it?
Yeah, don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it.
To their lips or your lips? I want to know.
That'd be weird.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, it's kind of sexy.
These Janet folks, they're not bad.
I'm gonna spill a bunch of secrets.
Until it's some great big bearded green beret. Shut up or I'll break your neck. Here's your soda.
I'm still turned on.
Yeah, I'm still going there.
Break my neck, man. Break it.
I don't know. Like, if you see one, you need to see one because then you'd be more excited about it.
It's a unicorn, right?
Yeah, it is. It really
is. It's a unicorn.
If
how many flights do you see
if we
when
saw
you're at
it,
the airport?
He'd be drooling.
Oh, yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah.
There's flights coming, going, whatever, and you're just like, doo-dee-doo. You see that come, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
if you know what it is. Because if you don't know what it is, it's just an unmarked plane.
you'd
white
never
red
care.
plane.
Yeah. So what? You'd probably look at there and be like, man, that's a rundown ass plane.
Yeah. That's a raggedy ass plane.
Low
Someone
budget
even
charter
heat
flight.
gunned the logo off the tail. What a loser.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's probably more technologically advanced than anything else on the
I don't think that they're
runway.
probably putting them on like, well, this one didn't make inspection. Put it in the Janet fleet. You know what I mean? You got your top people on these things. They're probably pretty well maintained.
I imagine
But
they
who
probably
maintains them?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. Like,
AECOM?
I was like,
don't know.
are they
Maybe.
flying HVAC people in and stuff like that? Like, I mean, do they do that all in a house?
Quite possibly. I mean, I had a friend who did sighting here in Wyoming, and it's not a big secret that here in Wyoming we have silos all over the place, even though you'd never know that's what you're looking at. And they're disguised as little farmhouses out in the middle of nowhere. He, at a very young age, and having never worked for the government at all, worked for a company that went out and put siding on these farmhouses. And he said, you knew where you were going because it's 3 chain link fences deep with 3 guards at each fence. And they're all holding them 16s and they're looking at you. And he said his boss looked at him and said, do your job. Don't be looking around. Get the siding on the building. We'll be out of here quick. That's what they did. You need quote unquote regular folk to go out and do what they do.
Paying well.
Well, I imagine they probably
$18 billion for siding.
Yes.
Well, how much were they paying for hammers?
Yeah.
Right.
The toilet
Exactly.
seats.
Another report came forward that like thousands of dollars for a hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
And you're like, come
Yeah,
on.
but it's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you take the money from this column, you stick it over in the hand sanitizer column, and then you've explained where that money went.
Well, and that's like Aaron's always talking. That's the black budget. That's how you do it, you know. And sorry, but
that's the thing. Where's that in the budget? We operate this secret, airline.
Well, see, it's probably lumped in with a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure
Absolutely.
it is.
So
I'm
if
sure
we
it
look
is.
at it, someone somewhere is probably looking at like some of these flights. What really goes unchecked? Number one, I don't want you knowing where my president is all the time, so I'm not going to report nationally whenever Air Force One takes off.
Although, oddly enough, you jump on Ads B and filter it down to the military. I have caught Air Force One and Air Force Two.
Right on. But at the same time,
But they blip out too.
well, of course they do.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want you knowing where he's
The
at.
craziest is like you click on it, right? And then it'll show you the flight path. It literally like looks like it emanated out of a rural field in Oklahoma. Like you know that they were somewhere, and then they were like, "Okay, turn it on now."
Yeah. Now we're safe.
Yeah.
Now I don't care that they know. And again, there's probably someone sitting at the Pentagon or somewhere in the DoD who just goes down that checklist and goes, okay, that much money for this much money for that. Fine. Who cares?
Right.
Doesn't matter. Because black budget, if we need to dive into
the
it.
Pizza budget. I need to know the pizza budget.
Oddly enough, it's pizza that gave away to reporters that we were going to head into the Gulf, I think it was.
Yeah.
Because when the Pentagon's got to stay late to plan a war, they order pizza, or they used to. They no
Pizza
longer allow them to
parties,
do
yeah.
it because the reporters started catching on
Yeah.
and paying attention to all the dominoes in the area. And if all the dominoes were busy one day, we were planning
That
an
must have been a
operation.
hit on Domino's, though.
I imagine it probably was. But at the same time, maybe it's one of those situations where, hey, you want a government contract to feed my people. I need you to keep your mouth shut about who's doing what. Now, that might include making 58 pizzas because no matter how high or secret you get in the government, you still got to eat.
You got to take that little Domino's light off the top of your car before driving
exactly.
over.
It's just a white car with a red line.
Janet Pizza. That'd be funny. You know what? We should found that.
We should.
There's a business
It's
idea.
documented. We own that.
Janet Pizza. We open up pizzerias around the Pentagon, around the NSA,
And then-
down in Langley.
The pizza, and it's just got a stripe of pepperoni in it.
Yeah.
That's all you need. That's all you need,
I
right?
love it.
Your slogan is the nation's most popular non-existent pizza chain.
You guys make pizzas? I cannot confirm nor
We gotta
deny.
workshop this. We gotta
As you're
workshop
eating
this.
it, I don't know what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
That way you don't have to share.
That's right, yeah.
No,
I don't have
we're
pizza.
brilliant. This. We've come up with the next plan for the Jackalopes. All right, just see, there you go. You incorporate the jackalope holding a little pizza.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is good.
Love it.
So, what else you got about JANET Airlines?
Well, that's going to do it for me for now.
It's an interesting and practical solution.
Oh, absolutely.
I've got to get people from point A to point B, and I've gone over the reasons as to why I've got to do that and why I would use a civilian airline. Coming out of the military, there's plenty of individuals who would happily do that after a good military career and maintain their top secret clearance. There's absolutely, again, this was one of those subjects that Aaron brought up and wanted to talk about, but I was like, because of course. For me, it's kind of an of course, and maybe it's just one of those situations where I've watched so much of like Bob Lazar's interviews and other people talking about Janet that yeah, of course it's there. Of course it exists. I'm not one of these individuals who likes to watch that kind of stuff, but there are people who do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I say go for it, as long as it's public information. Feel free to use it.
And the thing is, you've got that allure because it's like, ooh, what are these guys and what are they doing and all that stuff.
Right.
But probably 90% of it is my job is to install the software updates on the terminals, and you're just doing mundane work just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
Right.
But that's the craziest part of that, though, is it probably is not much of anything. But when the government's like, no, it doesn't exist.
Right, yeah.
Why?
Automatically.
When they're gaslighting you, you're like, now I want to know. I didn't want to know before, but now I want to know.
That's the craziest part for me is they're like, no. Mm-mm. I'm like, I've seen them. I'm tracking them on ASB. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
No.
But again, if as a government, if I acknowledge it to you, I got to acknowledge it to the rest of the world.
Right.
And the UN's going to start asking questions, and I've got them in my back pocket. I don't want them asking questions. Go ahead and issue your warrants or sanction the United States.
Yeah, right.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Sanction me. So, all right. Now, at one of these top secret bases, this is a conspiracy theory that kind of really started kicking off. If I remember right, it was like the 90s. And I've seen the presentation that was given by, I've got to find his name here. You'll have to excuse me for just a moment. Not Benowitz, but the other individual, Phil Schneider.
Yeah.
Now,
I'd have to look for that name too. I would never remember that.
Phil Schneider gave this massive kind of presentation and talk that you can find it online. It's very, very scratchy because it has been transferred from VHS tape onto video, and you can whoever did it, the tracking was horrible.
Right.
But so it is rough, but listen to his story. It's intriguing. Dulce Base is the subject of a conspiracy theory that claims a jointly operated human and alien underground facility exists.
Much like the Dark Pyramid.
Under the Archuleta Mesa in Colorado, New Mexico border, near the town of Dulce, New Mexico. This is in the United States. There are claims of alien activity there first, which arose from Albuquerque businessman Paul Benowitz. If you don't know Paul's story, check it out. It's sad, and one reason why I don't like the Mirage Men of the United States Air Force counterintelligence, because of the things that they did to Paul, who was a good man, thought he was being a patriot, and kind of driven over the edge. Starting in 1979, Benowitz became convinced he was actually intercepting electronic communications between alien spacecraft and installations just outside of Albuquerque. By the 1980s, he believed he discovered a secret underground base near Dulce, populated by gray aliens and human counterparts. By 1983, Benowitz claims appeared in the press. He went forward and told everybody, I'm intercepted. Now, understand that Benowitz was one of these tech geniuses. He was on the cutting edge of radio technology, which obviously is Steve's field. This guy could pick up signals other people couldn't through whatever techniques. And he was getting signals. He was finding these things, and he's like, this isn't human. This is weird. And the story rapidly spread throughout the UFO community. And by 1987, UFOologist John Lear, that everybody knows, his father invented the Lear jet, actually claimed that he had independent confirmations that this base existed. Lear's statement influenced Thomas Allen Levesque, I believe is how you say his name. He calls himself John Bishop III. That's his pen name. And he later admitted to fabricating stories about Dulce Base. So I want you to go. I want you to watch these testimonies. I want you to learn about this yourself and determine yourself if you believe it or not. In 1986, George Clinton Andrews actually discussed Dulce Base legends in a book called Extraterrestrials Among Us. In 1988, the tabloid Weekly World News published...
I love the Weekly World News. Bad boy!
I'm gonna admit something. I grew up on tabloids. I don't support them. I don't like what they do, but I love them.
Oh,
right?
man.
My grandmother, Ruth, my mother's mom, was subscribed to every single one, and she wouldn't throw them away because you got to have that news, right? And they would stack up on the kitchen table. And by the time I was like 6, I would sit there and just read one after the other. And it was just like Bat Boy and Sasquatch and, I'm having Bigfoot's baby. Like, you name it, man.
Yeah, it was great.
It was incredible. But, the Weekly World News, they actually published a story entitled UFO Base Found in New Mexico, which claimed that diabolical invaders from another solar system have set up a secret underground base in the rugged mountains of northern New Mexico, so that they can, quote, Shanghai human guinea pigs for bizarre genetic experiments.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Right?
Love that.
Now, again, this is the Weekly World News, but they used
Trusted news source.
Right. They used quotes from Leonard H. Stringfield as a source for their claims. But upon learning about this story, Stringfield checked it out and said, quote, I never read such a distortion of facts in my life. Right?
That's what somebody that knows all that would say.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolute. Plausible deniability.
I'm not eating pizza.
Right.
Now, there is Michael Barkun, if I'm pronouncing his name right, actually wrote that he's a political scientist. And he wrote that Cold War underground missile installations that are actually in the area superficially gave them plausibility to say these things because there's probably missile silos. It's New Mexico. They're dotted all over the place. There's probably
like Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah, coming and going all the time. Probably maybe even on Janet, So, but he said that it was also, an attractive legend. So once you get that ball rolling, good luck catching it again. It's going on its own. But there are claims of firefights that took place there. And this is where I'm going to kind of fast forward to Phil Schneider.
When you said his name earlier, I legitimately just took it as one word.
Phil Schneider?
Phil Schneider.
Phil Schneider.
James Phil Schneider.
Phil Schneider.
Phil Schneider brought Benowitz and Lear's claims out of the fringes with public speeches and bizarre stories about this underground base, that it's absolutely huge. It's like 7 layers deep. It's over 200 miles.
Sounds like the buried DIA buildings.
Right?
You never know. And he claims to have been a former government employee and an explosives expert, and said that he was involved in the construction of Dulce Base. Perhaps the most famous is his 1995 presentation, which I was talking about in the beginning, in which he alleged that during the project's initial stages, the military encountered alien entities beneath the ground. So they were already there.
Right.
And when they were trying to build this base, they didn't realize that they basically tunneled into an alien base. And upon doing this, roughly 60 people were killed in the purported firefight below the desert that no one knows about. Of course, none of these statements have been proven. Nonetheless,
they can't be.
He was missing numerous digits on his hand and claimed that it was from this firefight. He'd been hit. He was saved by a Green Beret who was there, pulled him out, and then like threw him in an elevator and got him out of there and sacrificed himself, like very heroic, like Green Berets are. But again, I mean, it was very, very fantastical.
As it would be.
As it would be, right? Like, seriously, though, let's say it did happen. Let's pretend it's 100% Schneider never made up a dang thing. Who the hell would ever believe you?
Right.
If you went through that.
Right.
Yeah. No one. Even people in the UFO community would be like, man,
that's a lot. Yeah.
You're asking me to carry a lot
reel it in
there,
just
buddy.
A little bit, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You should have taken like a decade period, wrote 4 or 5 books in between there.
Yeah.
Don't dump the whole thing on me. Green Berets giving their life for you. Get out of here.
At the hands of aliens, which only have like 3 fingers.
It's insane. It's insane.
Chisel.
Yeah.
Chisel
hand.
But Schneider's death by suicide, a little odd.
Real odd.
Even though Schneider had multiple weapons in his house because he said the government was coming for him, he honestly believed that the government was going to come and get him. He told his family, if I ever die by suicide, know that I would never kill myself.
Right.
He had multiple weapons at the house because of some ailments that he suffered from. He had multiple pain-killing medications at the house. And yet, according to reports, Schneider decided to unalive himself by wrapping a surgical cord 3 times around his own throat and tying it in a knot under his chin.
Totally plausible.
But if you're going to unalive the guy, why not use the stuff that's already there?
Right.
And
why
make it look like...
Yeah.
Unless he was fighting you.
Took too many pills.
Unless he was fighting you. And the best thing that you could do is choke this guy out because he wasn't going out softly. And then you're like, well, geez, Ray, now what do I do? Now he's not going to choke himself. Find something, you know?
Well, that's when you just arrange a car accident or something.
Right?
That doesn't look so suspicious.
Well, not just the finding, but things afterwards look pretty suspicious too. Even though required by law, reports say that the coroner didn't bother going and checking it out. He just took everyone's word for it. Okay, death by suicide.
That's
didn't bother doing it.
Unsettling.
And then at the request of the family, because they're like, no, he told us he would never do this. We would like an autopsy. So they didn't do one, but they took urine and blood samples that when the family came back and said, about time those samples got back right, they were like, well, we lost them.
No.
Of course they
always
did.
lost.
Yeah.
So
or they were tainted somehow where we couldn't get good results.
Here's the deal. This is the way I figured. Even though Schneider's, his story was pretty far out there. Number one, what if it really did happen? Number two, what if he kind of added to it? Because
that's the thing. That's what I kind of thought of right away.
Yeah.
I'm like, parts of it could be truth.
Exactly.
But then he was like, okay, but I got to make this bigger.
So that people actually pay attention.
Yes.
So that you pay attention to me, right?
Yeah.
Well, what if he, embellished a little bit, but the things that he was saying true were just too much. And they're like, this guy is doing too much talking.
This guy's trouble.
Yeah. Because, included in that, you've got to look at certain situations where it's like, this base is supposedly run by the Greys, a very popular species of alien. And when found, the reason why we didn't just go to war with them right then and there, and the reason why Dulce Base is now both of them working together, was because after everything calmed down, after the initial firefight, an agreement was made. And this agreement was supposedly between the Majestic 12, those who were really in control of the United States, and the aliens that we will share technology with you as long as you allow us to continue doing our experiments right here, the way we've been doing them forever, and you guys didn't even notice. Only now we'll give you a list of the people that we kidnap and experiment on.
Right.
So you know what's happened to them.
The list of cows.
The list of cows.
Yeah.
You say cows. That's interesting because guess where all the cows started to die mysteriously?
Huh?
Drained of blood.
Yep. Surgically
Surgically
had things
yep.
removed and no other evidence.
Dulce, New Mexico.
That is crazy.
The tie-in.
Okay. I'm in it now.
This
Oh.
is where the cow story came from.
Yeah.
Now, there's another theory that came about from Dulce, that the cows who'd had their reproductive organs, their tongues, and their blood removed, like, instantly, were done by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
The theory goes, or the conspiracy goes, that the U.S. conducted underground nuclear tests to see what would happen. During those underground nuclear tests, you know, you got to use uranium, you got to use a lot of different stuff that's pretty damn poisonous. Something got out or something leaked, and the government needed to know, is this going to have an effect on my population of the area? The quickest and easiest way to test for radiation poisoning, supposedly,
Right.
is the soft tissues, eyeballs, tongues. And I would also want to know, is it going to affect reproduction in the future? Am I going to have a bunch of 3-armed children running around with 8 eyes? Like, we got to know this stuff.
Spider Kid.
So take the reproductive organs of the cow. While you're there, get me the blood. We can run blood samples until the sun falls out of the sky. So supposedly, Green Berets, I love how everyone always just goes
Green
right
Beret.
back to the poor
Go
Green
for it.
Berets, right?
Yeah.
Like these brave men that go out and put their lives on the line.
It's
and
never the Navy SEALs.
no,
that are
right?
doing it,
Like,
right?
they
Yeah.
always go for the Berets.
Yeah.
But anyway, supposedly Green Berets are part of this program where they outfit helicopters to look like a UFO. They fly out there in a black helicopter that is fairly quiet, rope down, take what they need from the cow, rope up, and get the hell out of there.
Hey, Phil, what's your specialty? Oh, I'm in the cow dissection business.
You have no idea how many tongues I've taken. They don't even chart me anymore. It's thousands.
Thousands.
Cows fear me across the way. Come on. Well, you know, and here's the deal. You never know. The government might be like, dude, I need to know if we effed up without letting the public know that we may have effed up.
Right.
So that's your job. Go out there and take these parts and bring them home. So who knows? But I will say this. Dulce Base legends have been very similar to the Shaver mystery. In the mid-1940s, welder Richard Shaver began writing letters to science fiction editor Raymond A. Palmer, who published them in various pulp outlets. Very popular thing back in the day. Many stories come from this. Conan the Barbarian was a pulp thing, right? Now, Shaver told of malevolent subterranean beings that he called Deros, I believe is how it's pronounced, who piloted disc-shaped spaceships and quote, specifically highlighted the tales of the supposed underground base near Dulce, New Mexico as a prominent inheritor of the Shaver-Palmer tradition, characterizing Paul Bennewit's stories of an alien experimentation as a Deros scene right out of a Shaver story. So,
here's the thing. So it's a fantastical tale. Maybe it's got some history to it. But it's the same thing. You go to the government, you're like, does this exist? They're like, I don't know what you're talking
well,
about.
see, I think the hard part is, and they do this intentionally, you can't make the difference between the truth and what was made up.
Right.
Yeah.
We have no idea because the government just looks at you, goes and stands in the corner and waits for everyone to stop talking. That's who they are at the party. Everyone's like, oh, yeah. Well, let's talk to the government guy. He doesn't talk.
Right.
And again, plausible deniability. And of course, if you're allowing aliens to kidnap members of your populace to perform experiments on, you're not going to say that either. But I say everyone should go and do your own research and come up with your own conclusions. I will admit there's a lot of really odd things connected to the Dulce Base conspiracy.
Whenever there's cows involved, I'm in.
Well, and that was a big one.
That was a big one.
The cows were a big one.
Yes,
but
I was just saying it because I love the cow abduction.
But this is where the
it's
cow
actually linked.
Yes, yeah. And a matter of fact, you've got that popular image and that you actually made into a sticker.
Yes.
The cow going up that is a real story.
Yeah.
A woman saw that happening. That's where that comes from.
Yeah. Be a little unnerving.
Well, yeah.
You're like,
like my cow.
The thing.
Oh my God.
You often wonder, and maybe we should dedicate more of a show to it. What would your reaction be? Like, really, honestly, what would your reaction be if you saw something like that, or they landed and just basically said, "Yeah, man, we're here, we're real." What comes next?
What you two are doing.
Yeah,
and that's running toward it.
Yeah, never to be seen again.
I'm running away and never speaking of it again.
You just hear me tell my story.
And I mean, it's like there is no story.
Yeah, but then
he's running that way. I'm running this way.
And a green beret.
A sexy green beret?
Make it cooler.
Yeah, right. But that's the thing. Tell my story. That they tell your story and you're like, it's too fantastical.
Yeah. Where's your husband?
Yeah, what really
they would just investigate
they just
you.
put me in jail.
Yeah.
They'd be like, you killed him. I'd be like,
he's in the forest somewhere. And honestly, if she came back and told even you two about this, you guys would be like, you think she right.
Exactly.
She probably did, right?
Yeah.
And while Floyd's up there going, so which one's the probe? Are you the prober? Stop winking at me and get over here, big guy.
In the probe.
Yeah.
Come here.
They're like, they're all the probes.
No, they'd look at me like, Floyd, knock it off. We're done with that. We're leaving the probe room. You need to get over it, buddy.
You're like, I don't know. I don't know if the last one took.
Did you get everything you needed? You sure? I can come back.
Don't worry, we can do it again tomorrow.
I'm a willing volunteer. I don't think you understand how willing.
That's why you'll never be taken, though.
I know. Well, see, and that's the issue.
Yep.
I don't know. In all seriousness, though, so many people go missing in this country every single year. And I don't mean like, just the poor individuals who disappear because of human ill intent. I mean, there are some people who vanish without a trace at all.
And we've done an episode on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mystery surrounding that. And it terrifies me to think that my government would be a part of that. Because they're supposed to be the ones protecting us, all of us, from the group itself right down to the individual. That's what we pay them to do. So to think that they're part of something like that, now you really are in trouble. But I don't know. Janet, Dulce Base, Aaron?
None of them exist.
That's right.
We just did an entire show that was probably too long for Grant that doesn't exist.
It's even in the name, non-existent terminal.
And it's all there.
The show doesn't exist.
Not at all.
But that's the greatest part of this is we all know, we don't know about Dulce necessarily, but you take something that you know and they're like, no, it doesn't exist. And then you take something fantastical and they're like, man, it never happened.
Same response.
It?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I can look at this, but I can't look at that.
Right.
That no longer rules it out.
We're going to get to that point that we're going to know more of this stuff. And I always say, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy reality? About 5 months.
Yeah. Well, if you like this, check us out. We've got plenty of shows. We're starting to get quite the pile up now. We could even do like one of those, what do they call them?
Like a 24-hour live stream.
Right. Yeah. Just where we just put a bunch of them together. And
the cool thing to do now is to do a reaction video. We react to one of our old episodes.
Oh, yeah. I'd sit there. I don't know if I'd want to do that.
You're like, I don't want to.
Give us a like, subscribe if you haven't. We certainly appreciate it. Help us out. Helps out our algorithm.
And you've not been watching Jackalopes Explore.
Not at all. Grant, I want to thank you for helping us out.
Yeah, thank you, Grant.
Woohoo.
And we're not here. This never happened.
Yeah, this never happened.
Never heard of it.
I'm going to go pet a girl.
Tell my story!
But make it a good one.